Alrighty, let's get started. So my name is Hannah Hyatt. I actually just graduated from the School of Theater, Film, and Digital Production this past winter, but I'm really excited to be able to still participate in this research conference. My project is titled Jessie, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right. This is a pitch deck that I am presenting, but it is also the visual process of getting to know my grandmother a little bit better. As filmmakers, COVID has forced me to adapt the way in which I tell stories and where I find them. And with this project, I chose to look inward at my family. This has been a year of loss for my family, but I found both strength, resiliency, and love in my grandmother's story. And creating this project with her and for her has been so much fun. She's participated in various ways and in various contexts. And so I'm excited to share this with you, and I'm excited to share this with her afterwards. Let me just move you guys away so I don't see you anymore. Okay. So the following audio-visual presentation is just a brief snippet of my grandmother's life and her experiences, and it explores her story in different artistic modes by responding to a playwright I studied in my documentary theater class a few quarters ago with Dr. Annika Spear. This playwright, namely, is Anna Devere Smith. So the end goal of kind of all the research I've compiled is to eventually make a paper cut style motion graphics animation. And I am aesthetically inspired by two different artists. One of them is a dancer and motion animator. She uses stop motion techniques, so she animates by hand. She's on the left, whereas my friend Isela, who I went to school with, she uses After Effects, and she's a motion graphics designer. So she works on the computer rather than cutting out every piece and using a rig to compile her graphics. And I like both styles, and I would like to play with both of them. However, I think I'm going to start with stop motion animation because it is simpler than diving into After Effects for the first time. Okay, just a little bit about Anna Devere Smith. She uses journalistic techniques paired with live performance and theater to interpret both civil rights movements and the human experience. She is an actress, a playwright, a teacher, and an author, among other things. And she says of her own work, "We now have the opportunity to be a part of the discovery of a larger, healthier, more interesting picture of America." And I believe that she wanted to expose these truths of those most silenced, but while also giving these same people power over their own narratives. And I think that's really relevant to the conversations we're having right now in Hollywood. You know, who gets to tell someone else's story? And I think that before you try to tackle someone else's story, it's really important to be able to tell your own story. And that's why I started with looking at my own family's history and using my own family's archival images, because I don't think you can pay respect to others before you understand your own process of discovering who you are. These are a few just images of the works of Anna Devere Smith in different roles that she tackled. And her artistic license and interpretation is apparent in the staging of the stories that she witnessed and how she ordered the monologues that she wrote from interviewing the people she came in contact with. So, she would sit down and interview someone with a lot of integrity, and she would take down, every word they said, and she would take note of their mannerisms. But I think the artistic part comes in when she had to compile all of this research into an actual play or into an actual film. And that's where documentary theater making comes in. you know, she does all this extensive research on current events, and she chooses to capture them on the page. But there is an understanding that the process of interviewing the people the event has most acutely affected is where she finds her own truth and their truth. Twilight Los Angeles 1992 specifically inspired me to look back at archival footage of my family that has just been sitting on my hard drive and collecting dust. And it inspired me to document everything, which is something I used to do. I would just grab my camera and run out the door. I would pull it out, whenever I had the chance. And for some reason I stopped. And so after I read that play, after I read the foreword, I realized I need to start doing that again. And she taught me that documenting everything doesn't necessarily have to be from my own perspective, but that it's possible to be thoughtful and center your subjects so that they have autonomy and control over their own narrative and the spirit of that the art is attempting to capture. And so I wasn't able to, this is emerging research, so I haven't completed the animation, but I was able to put together a mini project, a compilation of audio and visual work, just a sort of start to the animation, some building blocks. But before I get into that, I have some, before I started compiling that research, I interviewed my grandmother, and I took some of Anna Devere Smith's questions, and then I made some of my own questions. And I'm not going to read all of them, but I sent these questions to my aunt because I'm not able to see my grandmother right now. And she was able to interview my grandmother for me. And that was a weird experience. That was an interesting experience in itself. Anna Devere Smith, she was the one that interviewed these people. But I sort of had to do it through somebody else. And I've decided I want to do it again. I want to go back and ask, form new questions, and rephrase them and ask her them myself. And I think I'm really excited that it didn't go the way I wanted to exactly, because Anna Devere Smith, she talked about in the foreword, in the introduction to Fires in the Mirror, she talks about how some people, you can interview them for like two minutes and they will give you like a novel. They will give you the most spectacular novel. And some people, you have to interview them for hours on end, because, people are different in front of the camera. People are different under pressure. And so I think I need to tweak my questions, and I think I need a new approach because each person is different. So I'm going to show you a little bit of my audio-visual presentation. Okay, so my grandmother was born in Vicksburg, Indiana in 1939. Her parents were Gernard Harrell and Lola May. Her father worked in a coal mine, and her mother was a seamstress and a cook for a family. And here's a little audio snippet of my grandmother.
So what's the story about when you were born?
I was born at home, I guess. That was a long time ago. And the doctor came to the house. I weighed 8.5 pounds. And as far as I know, it was a very normal birth. I was my mother's second, and my brother had weighed 10 pounds.
So if you notice, these are her responding to very specific questions that I sent to my aunt and that she posed. However, I think that I would want to, in the final animation, I would want to include both kind of like conversational recordings, her interacting with other people when she's not put on the spot, as well as her answering very concrete questions. And I think I would give her a lot of breaks in between because she's old and she gets tired easily, and you have to take that into consideration, where the person is in their life. And so I think I would approach it with like a lot less pressure and make it more fun so that her speech is more organic and she's able to share things that she doesn't have like memorized. I want to see things that are in the backs of her mind, and I want to see them come to the front in a natural kind of way. And so by doing this, I'm able to reapproach my project and see where else it can take me. And so that's why I'm excited that it didn't go the way I wanted to exactly, because I have another chance at turning it into something else.
Thank you, Hannah. That puts us at time. So I'm going to stop recording just so that we have time for you to elaborate a little bit more in the Q&A.